first emotion that I really felt was,
right,
it's over.
Yeah.
Now I can try to rebuild from here. It wasn't exactly relief, but there was a sense of I can't keep living this destructive life like I was. I've got to do something different. And that's where I started trying to live for my daughter and said, okay, you got to figure out a different way to do shit. And this is your opportunity to do that.
I knew a guy who robbed a bank with someone else, like actually took a hostage to get them in the bank. Ooh. Got a bunch of money, put it in there. There was a blue dye pack. They had it like in a bag, and they were driving in like a stolen vehicle. And he's like, man, we're going like 50, 60 miles an hour. And we're driving, and the dye pack goes off. Oh. And he said, you have no idea how much. He said, how much it blows apart. He said, blew apart, and he said, the windshield straight blue. He goes, so I'm covered halfway in blue. Mm-hmm. He's covered all in blue. He said the windows are completely. He said we're literally driving, rolling the windows down, trying to look out. He said it's that bad. He said we had to stop and we ran. We're running down the street completely blue,
covered. Yeah,
like it was. He said, and it stains, and it was over. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I definitely I can't imagine being trying to outrun the police.
Especially with all that adrenaline. I mean, it's so much adrenaline, Matt, that it about makes you sick. I mean, you're ready to throw up. Yeah. Just because it's that much adrenaline.
You know, guys will throw up. Like they'll get into. I had a buddy who got into a fight, and right after the fight, we were driving, and he said, pulled over, and puked. It was just the adrenaline. Like the adrenaline. It hits everybody differently.
Yeah, and it will definitely do that. That's where the tunnel vision came from. I mean, I remember specifically after that first one, running to get to her car, and literally I couldn't see anything in my peripheral vision. It was all just right in front of me, what I've got to do right now.
So the cops chase you lose control and wreck, or?
Yeah, they started chasing me. I wasn't really going fast. I was trying to figure out what to do, trying to calm my mind down, because I've still got all the adrenaline just going. I'm like, you got to stop and think. This person's following you. What are you going to do? Blue lights behind me. Shit. Hit the gas. Tried to make a turn that I knew I couldn't make.
Right.
But, you know, no matter how badass anybody says they are, when you're right in the middle of that shit, it's hard to think. Mm-hmm. So stomped on the gas, tried to make a turn I couldn't make. It was actually a little building I crashed into the building. Cops come running up, guns, all that.
Yeah.
Whatever. Fuck off.
Did you get out or they drag you out or out of the car, or did you get out and immediately just?
No, he came over to me. I was sitting there like, well, I mean, I hit a building at like 45 miles an hour.
Oh, okay. So you're in bad shape. Right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't in bad shape, but I was stunned, you know, at least airbag popped, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of sitting there, and next thing I know, I got a gun in my face. And all that. So.
Hey, if you guys didn't know, I also do paintings, and if you're interested in a painting, I'm going to leave my contact information in the description beneath the video. Back to the video. Yeah, my fear, my fear, to me, the whole trying to outrun the police, to me, I'm already thinking, well, eventually they're going to catch me. And the truth is, I'm probably better off pulling over and trying to get out on my own, because I may end up getting shot. These guys, their adrenaline's going. They think I've got a gun. If they think I've got a gun, then I end up getting shot.
Right.
So to me, I mean, I've known guys who were being chased by the cops, and they're like literally like just hit the brakes, pulled the emergency brake and jumped out of the car just as soon as it was done, with their hands in the air, and immediately dropped down on the ground, because they were like, look, I've been. Like, they'll shoot you in the car. Like, they can always say, I thought I saw a gun. I thought this. Some of the cops are super, I don't want to use the word vigilant, but they're just overly enthusiastic about possibly putting a bullet in somebody's head, and you just robbed the bank. You're running for the police. Yeah. He's in fear. He thinks maybe he might get shot, or they're just going to take advantage of the situation. Not that all cops are bad, but sometimes all you need is one dickhead. End up with a fucking bullet in your head.
And that's all it takes. And there's plenty of them out there.
Yeah.
So did that, was standing there, and one of the cops was really cool to me. He's like, you smoke? He said, you smoke? And I was like, yeah. He said, you want a cigarette before you go to jail? I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So I'm standing there. He moved the cuffs around to my front and gave me a cigarette, and I'm sitting there smoking it. And something that my girlfriend had said to me earlier that day, she's like, just please come home to me today. And in my drunken, stupid mind, I'm like, I got to get home to her. So I try to run.
Oh, my God.
Go.
What are you doing?
I'm drunk. I'm not, I'm drunk, adrenaline, whatever it is. So I run up to this one cop and I knock him down. He rolls down a hill. I find out later he broke his freaking ankle.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, they're going to crucify me. But I tell you what, Matt, when it all comes down to it, when I landed in that jail cell, I passed out for like hours.
Yeah.
When I finally came to, the first emotion that I really felt was,
right,
it's over.
Yeah.
Now I can try to rebuild from here. It wasn't exactly relief, but there was a sense of I can't keep living this destructive life like I was. I've got to do something different. And that's where I started trying to live for my daughter and said, okay, you got to figure out a different way to do shit. And this is your opportunity to do that. So I got, jail was 10 times worse than it was in 95. 95, 96, there wasn't a lot of gang activity. The feds wasn't that big a thing back then.
No, the feds were, they were still looking at basically bank robbery, mobsters, like more high, I don't want to say highbrow, but, more sophisticated types of crimes as opposed to now where it's basically almost like a state prison.
Yeah.
It's a big state prison.
It's just a big state prison. I mean, if they decide they want to get you for 7 grams of coke or meth or whatever, they're going to get you with 7 grams and lock you up for 10 years.
Yeah.
So the people that I met in prison the first time as opposed to the people that I met in prison the second time was so vastly different. Mm-hmm. I remember when I got out the first time, one of the things that I said often was I met a higher caliber person in prison than I did outside of prison. We knew guys in there that they were smuggling opium from Afghanistan. I had another guy he was on the run for 7 years in Colombia before he finally got arrested and thrown in a Colombian prison and they extradited him. So it was just, I met a lot of good people there that time. This time was completely different. There was all the gang activity. There was all these people that run around just on dumb shit all the time.
Were you in a medium or?
I started out in a medium, yeah.
Okay.
Started out at Beckley, West Virginia.
Did you end up in a low?
Ended up at a low at Ashland, Kentucky. Got nervous as hell because the first time I talked to my attorney, she's like, they're probably going to career criminal you over this.
You didn't know what that was.
I was like, okay, all I know is that means a shitload of time.
Yeah.
So I was like, just flabbergasted. And I was like, well, she said, well, I got to check it out thoroughly to make sure, but you're looking like that. So, and you know how public defenders are. They'll talk to you once every month or two, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here for weeks just bugging out thinking I'm going to prison for 20 years. As it turns out, the way it works is that 15 years from the last time you were incarcerated for a crime.
Right.
15 years is the cutoff for whether it's career criminal.
Oh, okay. So they can't use those crimes against you for the purposes of career criminal.
Now, I had 5 years of supervised release when I got out back in 2000. Had I violated and gone back to prison at any time for any amount of time, it would have counted.
Yeah.
And I would have been career criminal. But because that didn't happen, and like I said, I did learn a little bit from the first one, so I didn't use a weapon, I didn't threaten anybody, any of that. I got 45 months.
Nice.
I did a plea deal. I had 4 banks. I did a plea deal. They dropped 2 of them in exchange for the guilty plea for 2 of them. So I got counted for 2 bank robberies and got a 45-month sentence. Did 35 months.
Yeah, and
roughly.
That was, okay.
So.
Yeah, I knew a guy who robbed a couple of, I think he robbed 3 banks with a note. He got roughly basically like 30, I want to say 36 months, might have been 40 months, but roughly the same amount of time.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you tell people that in the feds that are just getting in and stuff, they're like, why the hell didn't I rob banks instead of selling drugs?
Yeah. Or listen, counterfeiting too is another one that these guys that can counterfeit, like they tend to get very little time for something that to me could have huge a huge potential as long as you're not using a weapon. Listen, the moment you start using a weapon, they have an issue.
With anything.
Yeah.
With anything. Well, see, here's the thing about counterfeiting, because, of course, at 23, I'm in prison. I'm still fairly criminally minded.
Right.
So I'm going through the sentencing guideline manual, the book they use to decide, and I'm looking for what's got the least amount of time. And counterfeiting was it.
Yeah.
But what I learned later on was that the feds will actually take it and they'll count each bill as a charge.
They can.
Or they'll stack it.
But if you take a plea, typically you can take a plea.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if you go to trial, you're done.
Yeah.
Like that's just, now we have the opportunity to really just destroy you. Like we can give you 30 years. You could have taken 3 years. Now we're going to give you 30 because you passed $500,000 worth of fucking money. Mm-hmm. Like every dollar bill is possibly a 3-year charge.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to let you guys know that I have a Patreon account. If you're interested in joining the Patreon account, it's got 3 tiers. The top tier, you actually get a different con man painting every single month. If you're already joined and you're already supporting me, I really appreciate that. If you haven't joined yet and you're interested in joining, I'm going to leave the contact information for Patreon in the description. Thank you very much for watching the video. Back to the video. Oh gosh, I talked to a guy the other day that actually Chad
Marks.
Chad Marks, yeah, he actually, I think, got 40 years. He actually went to trial. It's like, you're guilty. Like, what are you doing? You're guilty. He's like, I thought this, I thought that, But yeah, he got 40 years for something that he probably could have gotten, 10 or 15 for, something like that.
I don't know Chad well, but I've seen his post on Facebook a good bit. He's very active in the community with trying to help people out now. So
he's a nice guy. Like, he's genuinely like, well, I talked to him before we did the podcast for like 20 minutes and just seems like a nice guy. He was telling me all the different things that he's doing, and he's like, look, he got clemency, or is it, I don't know, it's I want to say clemency, but I don't think it was. It was basically what I think they knock off time off your sentence. They modify it. So there's another name for it. But anyway, or was it the Second Chance Act because of, no, anyway, whatever. The point is that he got out, he did like 17 years, and now he runs a consulting firm. He also runs what do they call it? It's like a legal, he does legal work for people.
And he's doing some great work from everything I've seen, because I've seen him getting some people off.
Well, he and this other guy that was on 60 Minutes, like they've won like certiorari in front of the Supreme Court. Like they've done stuff that like career lawyers who've been doing it 20 years don't do. Right. And he's doing great work. But then again, he also had 16 years to hone his craft, 17 years to hone his craft. I mean, for God's sakes.
Yeah, because you have to find something to do with your time in there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we always said. I'm sure you've heard it. Everybody has got their own way of doing time.
Yeah.
Some people, go grab a Bible. Some people exercise. Some people do legal work and hang out in the law library all the time.
Well, that's what I said was, I didn't want to play. I didn't want to join a softball league. I didn't want to learn how to be a chef. Because they have the culinary arts class. They had culinary arts. So I didn't want to be a chef. I didn't want to join a softball league. I didn't want to play handball. I didn't want to learn to play the guitar. So, what I'm saying? There's like all these things but listen, there are guys that are amazing in there that they'll play the guitar and you're like, oh my God, like this guy is phenomenal. And they join bands and they're amazing. But I just started realizing, I started talking, like I would talk to someone like you, and you hear their story, maybe bits and pieces, and then one day you hear it in 2 hours, they tell you their whole story because they have plenty of time. So they drag it out, they tell you every little instant, and then by the end of it, like if you can keep me, like, wow. I mean, like Boziak, when I talked to him, we talked for like 2 hours or so in the cafeteria, and I mean, at the end of it, I was like, bro, you got to write this down. Like we got to do something with this.
What can we do with this?
This is a great story. It's the same thing. And then, the problem is you meet so many guys like that, but nobody can write their stories. Like they can't write their stories. It's very difficult to write your own. You wrote your own story.
It is.
It's hard.
It's tough.
It's hard to see you as you truly are. So what happens is people write their stories. They become like a superhero. And it's like, but that's not really you. You're really, like, as I was writing my story, I kind of started to realize I'm a dickhead. Like, this is not really. So I had to rewrite it multiple times to kind of go back and realize, you made yourself sound like a supervillain, but the truth is, this was stupid. You're a dickhead here. You don't mention that you were scared to death.
And that's what I was about to come out of my mouth was I was scared to death the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the amount of talent in there is amazing. I met so many talented people in there, charismatic, good people. They're wired differently.
Yeah.
And
Boziak and I were talking about this the other day. Boziak's a guy that I do other podcasts with, and we were talking about, we were answering questions, and one of them was like, what programs would be good? And we talked about RDAP. He and I had talked about RDAP, and you and I had talked about RDAP. But the problem is like, because recidivism is ridiculous. It's through the roof. And but you're so set up to fail when you get out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that a lot of these guys they're just not putting enough effort in. But also, like, there's I think everybody should have to take an RDAP tile, either program
something
inside or out. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could scale down RDAP so that it was just about behavior modification, because a lot of it's just RDAP. Really, 95% of it is behavior modification. Sure. So some type of a program like that, there should be more of an incentive to take the program and pass it. A year, okay, but you go through hell for that year. And if you could give everybody that year, and then people go to RDAP, maybe they get 2 years. So there should be more of an incentive. And then when people get out, like, I got lucky. I got out. I had like $400 to my name.
Right.
So I had a little bit of money only because I wrote books, and I got lucky and was able to actually get a couple book deals while I was incarcerated. And I was a part of an option of one of my books. So that money was basically gone by the time I got out.
Sure.
Luckily, while I was incarcerated, after going to Walmart and spending $300 of my money that I paid, of my own money.
Right.
Luckily, a few weeks later, the option hit again, and I got a nice little chunk of money. I was able to buy a new Jeep, and get a year's worth of insurance. And had enough money. I remember I had $1,000 left over, and I thought, this $1,000 I'm putting it aside in case anything breaks on the Jeep. But I saw so many people would go. Their family would come in. They would give them a bunch of money. They would, they would help them. They'd come visit them. They've got a place to stay. They've got everything. And with their first paycheck, they're buying a $150 pair of Nikes.
Yep.
And it's like, your family gave you a chunk of money. Your brother-in-law got you a job. Everybody pulled together, and with the first bit of money you got, you spent it on a $150 pair of fucking Nikes. You're coming straight back to prison. And they do, because their mindset is, I still want to be a baller. I still want to impress anybody. Listen, I cry broke all the time.
Yep.
Everything I've bought. Did you know? I don't think I bought. No, that's not true. Okay, that's not true. The only thing I don't buy at Ross or Marshall's, the only thing I don't buy is these T-shirts, because I buy these T-shirts at Target,
right?
Because I really like the way they fit, and you can get two for I think $26. So they're like $13 a piece. To me, that's a lot of money for a T-shirt.
Right.
Everything I buy is at Ross, Marshall's, Bell's. Everything.
I'm exactly the same way.
If you gave me $1 million right now, I can't imagine spending. I used to buy blue jeans that were $200-$300 for a pair of blue jeans. I still have blue jeans. I still have blue jeans that I bought in Walmart 3 years ago, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually when I was riding down here, I had a buddy come with me, and we were talking, just about your story and a little bit and stuff. And one of the things that occurred to me, I was like, I wonder how that is to live the way you lived. You had an exorbitant amount of money, and then to get out here and not have that had to be kind of tough.
I get it. It would be different if it was. The difference is, it's not like I was still out and lost it. Right. When I went to prison, so by the time 13 years goes by and you get out of prison after 13 years of me, all the money I used, I spent on core links so I could write stories, print them out, email them to people to put into Word. And then send them back. Like, I had a whole process down.
Right.
So I'm eating soups. Mm-hmm. I'm eating every meal. Every meal I ate at the chow hall.
Yeah.
And look, some of those meals are good. Some are good meals.
Hey,
some are horrible.
Some are horrible.
But listen,
it'll fill you up.
You'll stay alive. You can be fine.
Yeah.
Didn't go to commissary a lot, and when I did, I bought coffee or creamer. I taught the real estate class, so guys would give me coffee and creamer.
Gotcha.
For I hustled certificates.
Yeah.
But getting out here, I think after going through RDAP and being so humbled that, and even now, I get out. And I have those moments where I want to buy a new vehicle, and I can afford that, and it's like, bro, what are you doing? You've got a brand new car. Like I got a little Jeep Compass.
Yep.
To me, I always say it's a chick's Jeep. I got a little chick Jeep. Everything works. The AC works. The brakes work. It's got Bluetooth. That's magic to me,
isn't it?
Everything.
Yeah.
So I just have to keep trying to be humble, and you could ask my girlfriend. It's hard. She's constantly looking at me. I'll say something and she'll look at me and I'll be like, fuck, like, you're right. You have to be thankful and humble, and I have to remind myself over and over and over again to do it.
Yep.
Because naturally, I want to be driving. I want to drive a $100,000 car. I want to live in a $500,000 house, which in Florida is $1 million house anywhere else.
I was going to say, in Florida, that's a shack, isn't it?
No. In Florida, $500,000. That's like $1 million. Money goes far in Florida.
Really?
Yeah, as long as you're not on the coast. Look, you saw where we are. Like this house.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Is probably worth. I think these things this is selling for this is like a $300,000 house.
Okay.
But bro, this house is huge. It's brand new. It's a year and a half old.
Okay.
Now somewhere else in California it's probably worth $2 million.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm saying, I just have to constantly be humble and try and be thankful for what I have. And I think that's something that prison and RDAP put into me, because I had a friend named Pete who used to say, and everybody's heard me say this, you cannot go to prison with the same mindset that you had prior to prison. Go through prison and get out with those same thought patterns and not expect to go back to prison.
You really can't.
Right.
I mean,
we were talking about that earlier.
Definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Right. But it's the same thing. Look, you drank that whole time. You happen to stay straight, but only out of the fear of going to prison. And then you finally got to that point, same issue you had before.
Yep.
Start robbing banks, go right back to prison. Well, what did you expect? Of course you're going to go back to prison.
Yeah. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed in my mindset. Nothing had changed in my personality. And, it goes back to what I was talking about with recovery. Until you're ready to do that,
right,
and whatever it takes to get you to that place where you're ready to do that, you're not going to do it.
But now you got out. You're starting. You've started it, but you're still doing the groundwork for a reentry program, Phoenix Reentry.
Yeah.
Is that the exact name?
Phoenix Reentry Resources is actually what it is. When we were in RDAP, I don't know if you guys had to do this or not, but you had to be a part of a committee.
Of course.
So I had a friend of mine. Let me tell you a quick story about RDAP right quick, because you were talking about how you kept dropping out of RDAP or something.
Yeah, I dropped out twice.
Okay, so let me tell you how I got into RDAP. Because I was in for robbing banks, no matter whether I used a gun or not, it was considered a violent offense.
They don't want to give you 1 year off.
They wouldn't give me my 1 year off. So I'd been at Beckley for about 2 years, and my custody level dropped to a low. So they put me in for a low, and when I got designated, they designated me for Oakdale, Louisiana. It was FCI Oakdale. I was like, where the hell is Oakdale?
Right.
I had to look it up and find out it was in Louisiana. So they've got me designated to go there. I talked to my mom. She's like, Justin, that's 800 miles away.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to bring your daughter to see you.
Yeah.
You're gonna miss that. So I'm sitting here brainstorming. I'm talking to everybody. They're like, well, if you get a shot, it'll kill your transfer, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, The RDAP coordinators have almost as much power as the wardens.
The wardens, right.
And the one that we had at Beckley, I'd had interactions with him. He seemed like he was one of the only people there that at least acted like he cared. Whether he did or not, he acted like it.
Right.
So I snagged him going across the compound one day, and I said, look. And I went and basically fed him this whole line about family acceptance and whatever, blah, blah, blah. I need to be in RDAP. I need to be in this RDAP, whatever. He starts getting on the phone and making arrangements to get me into RDAP. And it ended up the morning, one Monday morning, I was on the call out to go to R&D to pack out to go to Oakdale, and I was on the call out to go over to move to the RDAP.
Wow.
To the RDAP building. So everybody's kind of freaking out a little bit, figuring out what to do with me. This guy stayed on the phone all day to get me to be able to stay in that RDAP program. So I just thought it was funny when you were talking about that earlier. I meant to mention that, but
no, it's the same. You're lucky you didn't end up on a bus.
Man, you ain't even kidding. You ain't even kidding.
Because I very seldom do they stop a transfer. They have to make the phone. They have to go to what is it?
Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie. Thank you. They got to go to Grand Prairie. Get somebody even on the phone there is hard even for them. So I mean, you got lucky, but that was the same thing. I was supposed to be transferred. It hadn't gone through. Right. But they were saying, we're going to transfer you. And I said, oh, no, I'm going to RDAP. Can't do that. So I go over there immediately, talk to Dr. Smith, which was the PhD woman that runs the program. What that you're saying, their coordinator? You're calling
they call it DAPC.
Right, yeah, DAPC.
The DAPC. We used to run RSA and did the same thing to me. I was like, RSA? I ain't heard that shit in a while.
So same thing. She got me in there. And then, of course, 6-7 months later, I drop out again.
Yeah.
And she just because she thinks I'm there because I want the 1 year. I never told anybody, right? I mean, like my buddy Pete knows. I drop out because I figure I've got a management variable on me. You can't move me now. Mm-hmm. It's good for a year. About 3 months later, they call me and they go, okay, we're going to transfer you. And I went, well, to a camp because I had listen, when I went to the medium, I had 3 points. I don't have any violence at all.
It kind of surprised me when I heard you were even at a medium.
Well, because I had 26 years.
Okay, at the time. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, I got a management variable. She said, I know, but they're pushing people to go to camps. And so I'm going to call and have it removed. And I'm like, I didn't know it was that easy. Like, you guys made it sound like you couldn't remove it. And they were like, well, I mean, in this case, man, we got to get people to camps. You should have never been in the medium. You shouldn't even be here. And I was like, you're as soft as cotton. No, when you got your female counselor telling you, my God. And I was like, we can't do that. And I said, I'm supposed to go back to RDAP. She goes, you are? And I was like, yeah. I said, I've already had a meeting with Dr. Smith. And she said, she goes, when? I go, next week. And she goes, oh gosh, okay, well, I'll hold off then. I won't put it in right now. So hopefully you'll be on the call out next week. I said, yeah, definitely. Immediately go back and send an email.
Yeah.
And sure enough, luckily a week later, I did get a meeting. She said, okay, no problem. And a week later, she put me back in. But it was the same thing, transfer.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that you learn in there is you've got to work. You've got to work the system as much as you can.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're not looking out for you.
No, not at all.
No.
It's a terrible whole system. I don't know if you have seen all the news stuff lately. It's just been
what with COVID?
So much going on with the BOP and
they're falling apart.
They are. Apart. I mean,
they can't. They're my buddy Pete, who said literally he's like the most senior CO, correctional officer, the most senior. You got to try and use the correct because I want to say cop. You know what I'm saying? Like the inmates, inmates say cop. Oh yeah, the cop's over here. The cop. So the most senior correctional officer on the compound at the low has 18 months. You have to think the most senior before would have 20 years.
Yeah.
There'd be 5 or 10 guys that have 15 and 20 years there. Mm-hmm. Now the most senior one's 18 months. He's like literally. We're telling the counselors how things work. This is what you do. And they'll come to them and say, hey man, this is what's going on. What like I'm not even sure. I don't even know what. And he's like, well, fuck, if you try this, did you call so-and-so? Did you yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's like, Jesus God almighty. You got inmates there who have been there 25, 30 years and they're like they know the whole place. They could run the whole place practically. Yep. They could use a computer. But that's how bad it is. Like, and the budget they're being crushed by the budget. They have no budget. They have this nobody wants to work there. The guys are getting sick. Like the COs are getting COVID and then getting it again and then getting it again and then quitting their job. Like I'm done because it's just everywhere in there. It's so not that it's dirty because Coleman was super clean, but the fact is how do you get rid of staff when you've got 180 guys living together? You can wipe that place down every single day with peroxide or bleach or whatever you want to wipe it down with. You've got 180 guys. You just can't get rid of the staff. You just can't.
No.
You know, the showers, you know, it's moist. There's no, you know, it's like, you know, where's that? There's really no happy medium between keeping them in from escaping and being able to have showers and toilets and sleeping in bunk beds. And, you know, it's just, people just aren't meant to live like that. So it's a problem.
No. And I kept up with a handful of guys that I was in there with, you know, some of them in RDAP, whatever. And there was guys in there that didn't go outside for a year and a half.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, did not go outside.
Yeah.
You know, they're on lockdown all the time. The short staffing thing is making them basically, because the one thing that was ubiquitous all the way across the BOP that I saw was nobody really wanted to do any work, CO wise. No. You go ask them to do something, and that pisses them off.
Yeah, they didn't get a job. They didn't get a job as a CO because they wanted to change the system, clean up. Like I'll talk to cops who will say, you know, I genuinely, when I got hired, wanted to make a difference. Like I really thought, you get a CO job, you're like, I'm trying to kick back and make my 80 or 100,000 with some overtime.
Yep.
I don't want to do any work.
I don't want to do any work.
Right.
So yeah, and so they now they put everybody on lockdown, like on the regular, you know, just for no particular reason. Y'all are getting locked down for the next week, 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, because at this point, they're still able to use COVID as an excuse. And you know, this is the thing. Whenever I talk about prison, is that, you know, the truth is that I know a lot of guys get in there and they hate on the COs and they hate on the, you know, and look, but the truth is like, listen, like I met one or two people who were in prison who probably shouldn't have been there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I've met 5 or 6 that shouldn't have been there for something. Yeah. Now, almost everybody across the board shouldn't have gotten the time they got. Like it's insane, the time. Like, you know, okay, you broke the law, you fucked up, you need 5 years, but they gave you 30
on your first offense,
right? Or even their second offense for something that's always minor. It's like, are you so you had a gun that was at your house 5 miles away and they enhanced you because they found a gun when they searched your house that you didn't bring to the drug thing, and now you got 15 years?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, holy shit. Like, you know, it's there's all kinds of reasons, but you know, the truth is that, look, 95% of the guys that are locked up, like, I don't want them living in my neighborhood. You know, and not so much because they're criminals or they did something wrong, but because they're in there and, like we talked about, they're just plotting their next indictment. And to me, but also by the same token, the best people I've ever met in my life, I met in federal prison. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's that? Like, and that to me has to be, there need to be programs, and these guys are going to fuck them up. Right. They're going to fuck them up.
Yeah, but they're not. There isn't any government system that's going to work to try to fix this.
But just like RDAP, look, it doesn't matter that you're right. Half the guys, or 80% of the guys might be faking their way out, but to save the 20% is still saves so much for overall. It saves the taxpayer so much money. They don't. If you do the math, that program more than pays for itself, and it saves the taxpayer so much money.
Absolutely.
And what would save the taxpayer even more money is if these people had some way to get themselves back into society in a decent way. Because the truth is, and this is what I was going to get at, and this is me just being a fucking narcissist, is that most guys are not going to have the savvy to set themselves up to be able to get themselves back on their feet, even with the halfway house. Because the staff at the halfway house doesn't want to help you.
They're making $10 an hour. They don't give a shit.
They hate they just hate you. Like, they're doing everything to want to fucking make it as hard as possible.